Okay, thank you. Yeah, so it's very important that we learn how to make it work. So today I have with me a colleague. So both of us are RCICs, meaning that we are licensed by the Canadian government to help people immigrate to Canada legally. So we will not do anything anything shady or fraudulent. But if you are interested in coming to Canada in the right proper way, then we are your plug to Canadian immigration. So I have with me Mr. Amos Osebo. He's vast in this business. He actually mentored me. He was the one that encouraged me and pulled me into into the business because I mean he's good at his job. So both of us will be anchoring this webinar today, and I will just hand everything over to him to take it up from here. So I know there will be questions and everybody's muted. So as we progress, just drop your questions in the chat box and we will take as many of them as we can. So to minimize distractions, we will not allow anybody to speak as at now. So Amos, over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me good.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, just give me a moment.
So if you can hear him, please respond in the chat box. Do thumbs up. I can hear you. I mean, sometimes it can be a bit lonely when it just looks like you are speaking to yourself. Okay, Ibrahim, thank you. Oladipo, thank you. So you can hear him. Yeah, he will be sharing. You want to share your screen?
Yes, I will. Just a moment. Okay, now I'm going to put on the light behind me. So one moment.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so hello, everyone. Thanks for joining the session. And we're just going to get going right away. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. And please confirm if you can see my screen. Okay. All right. Coach Bosse, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can. No, not
Awesome.
yet. Not yet. It's just your face I can still see.
Oh, okay.
Oh
Let's
yeah,
stop.
I can see, sorry.
Okay. All
I
right,
can
great. Okay, so everyone else, if you can't see my screen, just put it in the chat so I can be sure we can all see it. Yes, you can see it. Okay, awesome. Thank you for confirming. All right, so my name is Amos. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. Um, I I basically love to talk to people about immigration as it relates to coming to Canada. And for us, today is just to focus, narrow it down to just a category-based selection that gives us clear direction on what you should be doing if you want to come to Canada through this program. So I'm going to go from here. Um, just a moment. My screen seems to be paused. Okay. All right. I was trying to use the full screen. It wasn't showing. Okay. So I hope it's better this way. We're just going to try to increase it a bit. Coach Bossa, is it better this way?
Yeah, if you can just remove the one on the left, all of those are yes.
Is it better
So,
now?
yes.
Okay, awesome. All right. Okay, so great. That's who we are. My company is Exciting Future Immigration. We connect individuals, families, businesses to an exciting future in Canada. I like giving this disclaimer in all of my presentation. This is an informational session. If you want case-specific advice, you would need to book a consultation on that, right? So you cannot construe this session as a legal advice. It's very important I make that. So today we'll talk about Canada and immigration. Why is Canada talking about immigration in the first place? Talk about the Express Entry program, go to the category-based selection, and any other matters for today. Okay. Canada needs you and I. So I'm in Canada today because Canada needs us, and the data is there. You might have seen the news, a lot of things, like a recent one saying Canada wants to cap um, number of international students coming into Canada. Well, that conversation is still going on. But whatever the case, Canada still needs people to come in. They need it. And now they're really focused on economic immigration, which is people that would be able to add value. In other words, you have the skills, you have the money, and then you want to come in to set into the country. So that helped them to build their economy. The population is aging. Those people are not working. So they need you and I to work. They need you and I to contribute to the society. So the data is there. You can validate that later on. Okay. So permanent residents in Canada. For right now, you will see the data might have been updated somewhat, but generally, Canada is still, is still humanitarian. We still receive refugees, people needing protection, but it's about 10 to 15%. Then the family class, in other words, you have your family member and then they are able to sponsor you through the family class, either a spouse or a child or parents and grandparents. But the bulk of Canada's immigration program is economic immigration classes. And in that, you have several, but we're focusing on express entry. And, and within express entry, they further narrow it down that they just want to focus on category-based selection, right? Okay. All right. Okay. Express entry, you hear that a lot. What is it about? It's just an application management system the immigration uses. And there are three main economic programs. You have the federal skilled trade, um, you have the federal skilled worker, you have the Canadian experience class. So you must be eligible for one of these programs in the first place before you can even create an express entry profile. I see a lot of people just go on, create express entry profile, and then they get the result that, hey, you are not eligible. And they're wondering, why am I not eligible? It is just because of this. You were not eligible for one of this program before you went on creating the pool. The express entry calculator on the website is just, it's actually checking your eligibility in the background, but it is not telling you whether you are eligible or not. But in the end, it gives you the CRS score. So people see that and they are like, okay, I have the CRS score. But when they go to create a profile, the profile cannot be created because they're not eligible under one of these programs. So you will have to check that you're eligible under one of this program before you go ahead to create a profile. I'm not going to go into the details on this, but this just gives you the information on what the federal skilled worker class, what is required, right? You must meet this at least 1 year, skilled work experience, right? And you must meet the language ability requirements, minimum CLB 7. If any of your language test is short, maybe you have a 5 or 5.5, you cannot use that to create a profile. You need a new test. Education completes at least secondary school. Yeah. If you studied overseas, you need to get evaluation on the credentials. Selection factor score. So of all these assessments, you must score the 67. So that's where people get tricked. When they go to create a profile, they see they're not eligible. It's because you don't have the minimum 67 points and they assess you on those. So all of that We get to understand it later on. Then the settlement funds, it's very, very important. You must have money. You must have money. If you're coming through the federal skilled worker class, you must have money. And there's an amount of money required for each based on your family size. Okay. Then you have the Canadian experience class. So this one is people that have studied that maybe they studied in Canada and thereafter they had a work permit, or they came directly for a work permit and they were able to work in Canada. Now, the time you were studying in Canada, the work you did is not a Canadian experience in the context of express entry. It is only after you've graduated from the program and you work legally on a work permit, then you have 1 year of that. That's the Canadian experience class. So those category of people, they fall under this. So not many international people fall under this because some people have not been able to come into Canada yet, right? And then you have the other category, the federal skilled trades. Now, this is specific to the trade occupations. And then there are some minor occupations they add in there, like the bakers and the cooks. That category was added with this group. So they call them the federal skilled trades. So you can think about the plumbers, the carpenters, and all the categories of the trade occupation. So they have specific requirements. So if you meet the specific requirement, then you're eligible to then create your express entry profile. All right. What's the general points to note when you're creating the profile? You must have a language test that is accepted. There is the International English Language Testing System, that's IELTS. We know that as IELTS, and it is general training. There is also the academic one, but for immigration purpose, you need to write the general training. And there is also the CELPIP. And the good thing now is I think there's CELPIP center in Nigeria, so you have options now. You can, I don't know if other African countries have it yet, but I know there's China, I'm not sure if they have in India, but then yes, you have the option in Nigeria. You can choose either or just check what works for you. They have practice tests. You can do those practice tests, see what works for you and do that. If you've written the test, it's valid for 2 years. Note that. If you've done your credential evaluation, it expires after 5 years. So the fact that you've done it already, you are not going to need to send your transcript to them anymore. Just contact the agency you used, if it is WES or ICAS or any other one, ask them to do that. Some people might be here, might not know those terms, but we can explain them later on if you have not heard about this before. Then, for the federal skilled worker and federal skilled trade, you may be able to get a support from an employer. Maybe you get a job and they get what they call the Labor Market Impact Assessment, LMIA. You might be able to use that to gain points on valid work experience. And then you might be able to use that to increase your your standard or your status in the pool, get more points. But that's a lot of process. It's not so easy to come about, but it's there. But you must still have your proof of funds. The only exception to that is someone that has already had Canadian experience, work experience, and they have an LMIA, then they don't need a proof of funds. But if you are in Canada, you have Canadian experience through your post-graduation work permit, you still need proof of funds. That is not an exception. The only exception is if you have an LMIA, then you are exempted from that. Federal skilled trade, it's clear. Canadian experience class never requires proof of funds. So if you've worked in Canada on a work permit for at least 1 year, you don't need proof of funds for express entry. All right. So these are just general points to know. Okay. Creating a profile. Here's where a lot of people trip. Now, these are just pointers and they are guiding posts. I know some people have already created a profile. Some might want to create it themselves, but I would recommend you help you, you let us help you create a profile. And the reasons are just on the slide. If the information does not impact eligibility or points, do not enter it into your profile. I see people put all sorts of information in the profile, not their fault. It's because even the immigration website does not really clarify a lot of details, and people just go ahead to put that. I'll give you an example. You have a work experience with an employer, maybe you stayed there for like 3 to 6 months, and maybe you left their employer, you didn't have documentation, or there wasn't, um, maybe you were paid by cash, or maybe you had issues with the employer, but you don't need that to qualify. It's just a 3 months, 6 months work experience. That kind of work experience does not need to go into your profile because you don't need it to qualify. However, you still need to declare it. In the event you get invited and you get an ITA, that is invitation to apply, you have to declare all of your last 10 years. So it is during that time you can put that information in your personal history. So I see people put this information in their history when they are creating profile. When they now get an invitation to apply, problem to get reference now ensues. They can't find the employer. Maybe the employer has closed shop, and then they have issues creating that connection because they want to see that. Another mistake, some people put their spouse's work experience. For express entry, your spouse's work experience cannot give you any points, except it is work experience in Canada. So if you are the principal applicant, your spouse's work experience cannot give you points in express entry. If you put it in the profile, just know you would have to provide reference letter, you have to provide all of those things. If it's okay, you can get all those things, fine, just put it. But again, whatever will not add to your points does not need to go into the express entry profile. When you get invited with an ITA, you can then put all that in your personal history. These are just tricks I just shared with you. So, summary of this, always take the path of least resistance. Always, always, minimal, always, okay? All right. Now, this is how the points is allocated. I'm not going to go into all these details. So if you want to understand how the CRS points is allocated, there's points allocated between single versus those that are married or in a common law partnership, okay? Yeah, just for information purpose. Now, you remember we said there are 3 categories within the pool that makes you eligible before you can create a profile. That said, there is a fourth, but we don't call it the fourth. The reason is that what makes it the fourth is you are first qualified in one of those 3 first. That's it. First, you're qualified. Now, the fourth is the provinces now go into the pool. They always do that. If they see what they want, they see what they like, they can invite that candidate. If your profile sounds good, I give you an example. I had a nurse that was in the profile. Their CRS points was like 345, and Nova Scotia at the time was looking for nurses, right? And they said, okay, people that have nursing experience, 3 years of nursing experience, and their English language score was about CLB 8. That's more like getting like 6.5, 6.5 across, then 7.5 in listening, 6.5 in the rest. That's CLB 8. Now, they saw her profile. She meets that requirement. Then she got an invitation to apply to the province. So you apply to the province, then you get a nomination. And that's where you get the 600 points. So that's why it's kind of the fourth. But don't see it as a fourth because you have to be qualified for any of those 3 first before you can do this. So this is where we are focused on. Okay, this slide, I ought to update the last column, but I'm going to do that during the question session. All right. So category-based selection, this is where they are really focused on right now. They looked at it all, they said, you know what? We cannot just be issuing invitation and in the end, We're just getting people coming. Let's think through this express entry thing. We want to make it very competitive. We want to make it work for us. We want to make it work, work for economy. We don't just want to invite people and just have them come in and all that. They now decided, they had consultations with different groups, and then eventually they came that the categories we're going to be focused on for the rest of 2023 are these: those with French language proficiency, and they must have CLB. That's CLB is the equivalent in French is NCLC 7. So think about it like you write IELTS, you score 6 across minimum, but in French in this case. So there's TEF and there's TCF. Those are the two languages acceptable for French. So you must score that and you'll be able to get that. I'll need to check the draw so far. I hope I got that right. If I'm wrong, please tell me I'm wrong. I'll update it. I think I didn't get it. I didn't get all the totals well. So the requirements for French is that no specific occupation. Provided you meet that requirement for French, you get an invitation if they do the draw targeting French language, right? And then there is the healthcare. There is the science, technology, engineering, and maths category. There is the trade. There is the transport occupation, and there is the agric and agric food. So this is where they are focused on. So far this year, they've had 3 French draws, French proficiency. If I'm wrong, please let me know. Put it in the chat. I'll check it. I think I didn't update that. And so far, from those 3 draws, it's about 6,900 they've invited. So they are heavy on the French thing. They really want to make or bring in more French speakers into Canada, increase that in the communities around us, right? Now, also you look at healthcare. I think there've been 2 draws on that. I'll double check again. And STEM, I think there was a draw on STEM. I'm sorry, I didn't update this on my slide, but I'll do that while we're answering the questions. Then the trade. Now, what is the key requirement for the occupations, right? So you have French proficiency and then you have the occupations. The occupations, the key requirement is you've accumulated within the last 3 years at least 6 months of full-time continuous work experience or an equal amount in part-time, right? In a single occupation listed in the table. So the table, it has a lot of occupations, which I just summarized some of them here, right? The experience can be in Canada, can also be overseas. So if you're in Canada as a student and while you're studying, you also had this experience, whatever experience you have while you're studying is technically seen as a foreign experience. You can still use it for the purpose. So if you're a student and then you're working part-time, you're doing a 2-year program, you're working part-time all through, and you've done 1 full year, perhaps maybe you were working as an IT specialist, or you were working as a carpenter, or you were even doing a truck driver work for that 1 full year. 1 full year is equivalent of full-time 6 months. So the 1 full year part-time hours qualifies you already. So that qualifies you for this program. So if you're a student in Canada and you have a work experience in any of this, and you've been doing that for 1 year, that's equivalent of 6 months. So you already have what it's required to get invited. Then for the transport, truck drivers, yeah, a lot of truck drivers are out there and they have this opportunity to be able to come into Canada. Agric and food, they are specifically focused on these occupations. So these occupations are, you can see butchers, like, if we look at them from back home, like a butcher, who is a butcher? Somebody just cutting meat. But they are valued, guys. They are valued in Canada. Someone has that experience, they can come into Canada, right? So, but the challenge here overall is they still allocate points, right? Your CRS score will still be a subject to be talked about. But so far, from the draws they've done from like for French, I've seen them invite people with CRS score of 388, right? And that's good. Healthcare, it's been a bit high, like 463, the last one I think I saw. STEM, I think it was 470 something thereabout. The traits was even also like 300 and something. So you could have them reduce the points. But the fact that if you are in any of these occupation, you don't want to waste time. You want to get into the experiential pool because it can decide to either use a high CRS score or they use a low CRS score, depending on the number of people in that pool. Okay, that's where the projection comes in. So I'm going to read that out because I didn't have it on the slide, but I'm going to put it up in the slide. So um, yeah. So in terms of the projection on the occupations, by the rest of the year, they are targeting to do okay. For the rest of the year, just give me 1 second. I'm gonna pull that up. For STEM, the big focus is on STEM because if you look at it, French, they've really done a lot for French, right, so far this year. So the big focus is for French, for STEM occupations. They are targeting between 28 to 31% of the draws will be focused on French. STEM, sorry. French, still high, 11 to 15%. Healthcare, 10 to 9, 9 to 12% for healthcare occupations. Trades, 3 to 4%. Transportation and agriculture, 1 to 2%. So that's the projection they've made. So that gives you an idea of what the draws will look like in the next couple of months. So what is required of you today is to act. Basically, that's all we're just saying. Act. Get into this. Act. Act right now, get things done. The last thing I'm going to talk about, misrepresentation. Very big problem a lot of candidates face. I always like bringing this up. Please don't don't give false information in your immigration application. You could have made mistakes in the past. You could have even lied in application. I purposely use the word lied, right? You could have done that in applications. When you're reapplying, when you want to work with me, work with Coach Boss, will tell you have to declare it. It's important you declare that, clear the old. I've had people that have lied in applications, even in their study permit, they've lied, and they are now applying for PR. I told them you have to declare because they will know. Now, when you do declare that, you clean it up. It's my job, our job to clean it up and explain what happened. You were misled, blah, blah, blah. I've not had anybody that have done application for declare their past that was penalized based on that. They were always approved. They were always approved because you came out of front, you did that. But if you misrepresent and go on with it, even when you become a citizen, they could renounce your citizenship if it comes to light. I give you an instance. Over 700 students from majorly from India, they only to find out that they came into Canada through fraudulent admission letters. The agents that they used to get the admission got them an admission to particular schools. They used that to apply for study permit. When they came into Canada, obviously they were fraudulent. They came into Canada, they now got them the correct one. They now got them another school, which was now, they can now use that. Because when you are in already, you can change school. You don't need to apply again to IRCC. You just tell them that, okay, I have changed school in the system. But all that came to light later and recently, and they discovered that over 700 people were affected. Because of the large number, Canadians rose up, asked for leniency and all that. They kind of stayed their ban. So right now, they are supposed to be deported, but they stayed it, right? They just use public policy, just to manage the situation. But the truth is, no matter how far it's gone, if it's several years, they can still come back and get that person. They can still come back and ask you, okay, this happened, this has been discovered, and then it becomes a problem. So people can lose their citizenship because you lose your citizenship, you become a PR. And when you become a PR, then there are rules that now go with misrepresentation that affects PRs. Then the person is found ineligible based on this, and then they start the proceedings to get the person deported. So please, it's better you come clean, say what the issues are, and let the officers decide based on that. And in many cases, I've had people approved. Always, always, always. So on that note, I will end it here and then we can take questions and all that. Over to you, Coach Bossett.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amos. Can we show Amos some love? Let's put some hand clapping in the chat box. I know you can't talk, but do some virtual. We appreciate you kind of gestures, Ejo. Thank you. Say thank you to him. Okay. So we need to start to take our questions now. And I would like to ask you, Amos. So all of these things now, I know that the information is a lot, and from my experience with people, when they say that they want to come to Canada, you see, by the time you start to go into technicalities and start to tell them all these details, they just zone out. It's like, okay, this one is too difficult to understand. Can you just, I want to relocate, I want to relocate. They don't want to really understand. It's like you're stressing me. Right. Just get me to Canada. So in a nutshell, if I have people like that on this call, that all of these things that you have said now is just French or is German.
Right.
What is going to be the next steps for them? What would our service to those people be?
Great question. Thank you. So for those category of people, two things you have to note. One, you studied overseas, your degree, your diploma, your certificate would need to be evaluated by an organization in Canada. We can help you through that process to get it, but you would have to play a part, which is getting your transcript from the school over, and then they will be able to evaluate your credential. Number two, you need language proficiency. I hear people with the argument, okay, I studied English, I studied in an English country, including people from the UK that were born English, they still do IELTS. So think about that. Everybody doing immigration would have to do language tests. So you have to do the language test. Those are the two critical things you need first. Once you have those two critical things, every other thing are within your reach, like your work experience, you have the information, right? Your education, your family, you have the information about all that. So if you get us those two things done, the next, we can then help you to create the Express Entry profile that gets you into the Express Entry pool. Before we do that, we assess to be sure, as I mentioned earlier, you actually do meet the minimum requirement before we go ahead to create the pool. With that, all of the headache around how to create the pool, how to understand that. We take care of that for you. What you need to take care of, your credential evaluation, your language test results. Those are the two big things you need to take care of. Getting reference letter from your employer or previous employer, you can do that later on. But the two key things we need to create a profile are those. Once we have those, we go. What do you need for the language test? You need a minimum. If you're writing IELTS, you have to score 6 in each of the language areas. You have listening, writing, speaking, and reading. You must score minimum 6 in those areas. If you self-PP right, it is minimum 7 you need. Okay. So I think that kind of breaks it down. Let me know if that doesn't break it down. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean that's a very easy step for them to take. Do your credential evaluation, then write your test of English. When you have those two and you know that you have minimum 6 months work experience, then you can come so that we create the profile for you. So the next question, under this trade, you know, under the skilled trade, we have so many people, carpenters, welders, Canada wants butchers, you know, abattoir for Nigeria. There are many butchers there. We have mechanics on the roadside, and vulcanizer, and all of those artisans. Can they come in?
Great question. They can, but there is a but there. The express entry pool, for right now, they've just been so heavy on giving invitations to people with a high scoring points, right? Now, for this category of people, my fear first is, do they meet the requirements for the program? I'm going to go to that slide real quick and show us what I'm talking about. So if the person can meet that requirement, that's where it starts from. I'll show that.
So, like, do they have high school?
Yeah, yeah,
And they pass the
exactly.
English? Now,
Exactly.
when it comes to the credentialing, so if somebody is a carpenter or an electrician, under the skilled trade stuff, what type of credential will they be required to show, since Nigerians really are artisans but they do not have certificates, most of them?
Good. So what's the big requirement for this? It's you have 2 years of full-time or equivalent part-time work experience in the skilled trade within the last 5 years prior to your application, right? So the issue of documenting the experience will be key, right? And and it has to be a paid position. I know some of these artisans might not be paid directly by their boss, but what kind of remuneration do they get? Do they they would have to be able to show that they get remunerated, even if it is transportation, they get paid, or feeding money, they get paid. So the work experience will be heavy for them, right? The minimum high school education is for federal skilled worker, but for them, the big deal is the work experience, because they know many of them might not go to school, formal school per se, but the big deal is the work experience, that they have 2 years of work experience within the last. So whether they have high school or they don't have, they will still be eligible
Okay.
under the skill trade.
Okay.
But the
So
bigger thing is the language test, right? So the language test, they have minimum of CLB 4 in reading and writing. I would just say minimum CLB 5, because breaking it down like this, people might not get it.
yeah.
CLB 5, see it as you write IELTS, you score 555 across. Minimum. Minimum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. So that means that for those people that are just, you know, self-employed artisans in Nigeria, they may not be able to come in. So can we now look at, let's say somebody is an engineer, has an HND or OND, and then this person is working in a structured organization as a technician. Would they be the ideal candidate for this FST?
So what kind of technician? That will now be the case, right? If they don't fall under the occupation, then that becomes the thing, right? So I'll show you another one. All right. What can you see on my screen?
Yeah, the page for that has a knock code and
Okay. So for trade, You can see what I just did, right? For trade,
Mhm.
you see that. Now, these are the occupations under trade, right? Trade occupations. So
Mhm.
it's specific. Now, the person have to be any of these occupations, right?
Yeah, a plumber.
A plumber as an example. Yes. So that's very clear. The person works as a plumber, whether they have high school or they have OND, but their job is plumber or
Mm-hmm.
they're carpenters, right? Then
Mm-hmm.
that's what they need. And the requirement is they have minimum 6 months of experience within the last, get it. Let me back up a bit. The first requirement to get into the pool is they meet the requirement for the skilled trade worker, right?
Mm-hmm.
They meet that requirement where they have minimum 2 years of experience to get into the pool,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they even got into the pool with any other experience they have, whether through the federal skilled worker class. But then they now have carpenter experience for 8 months within the last 3 years.
Mm.
That experience is still relevant for the selection,
Okay.
right? Because they have that experience, right? So whatever the experience, and people have mixed experience, really. Some people worked carpenter before within 5 years ago. Maybe right now they're in the office. It's fine, provided it still meets a requirement, they are good to go.
Okay. So for these trade people, would they need the certificate of um the the certificate that the trade organization in all the provinces will normally give. So if you are a welder or you are a carpenter, there is a trade association organization in that province that you apply to get a certificate. Would they need that?
So the goal for the Express Entry program, bring in skilled worker, right?
Mm.
That's the goal. Then the other part of the question is, all right, your question really is about for them to be able to practice that trade, many of
Yeah,
the trades you need to be
I
licensed
think.
somewhat, right? But the licensing is not the immigration headache. You get what I
Okay.
mean?
It's
Like
for them to
medical
work.
doctor, the medical doctor being invited through express entry
Mm.
is different from when the person now lands to now work as a medical doctor. Then they will now go through the licensing process. Canada is smart. They know if a medical doctor come, he can do other healthcare work, right? Pending when he gets his license to practice. So immigration can bring the person in, which is the goal, bring them in. Then when
Mm-hmm.
they are here, they now get their license to practice. So whether they have the provincial license or not, provided they
Mm.
meet the requirement for immigration, they can come in, they will be accepted, right?
Okay.
That's how it works here.
Okay, thanks. Can someone who just entered Canada on PR, this is not applicable for this webinar, commence studies immediately, or how long does the person has to wait? So if you entered as a PR, you can do anything with your life. You do not need to wait. You can start work immediately. You can start school immediately. There is no waiting anywhere. Is it possible to enter Canada through work permit? Do you offer such service, and how much? No, we do not look for jobs for people. If you have an employer, you have a job offer, then yes, we can do your work permit. But for you to say, oh guys, I want to come and work in Canada, go and get me a job. No, we don't do that. Can those who have retired from government service, e.g. nursing, apply? Yeah, so Amos, the age, okay, if the person has retired, I am assuming the person is over 65 years old. Does that have anything to play in terms of this selection?
Yes, it does have, but again, these are points-based selection. If the person has retired, did the retirement happen 10 years ago, then they're not eligible. If the retirement happened 2 years ago, 2 years ago, it's still within the last 3 years, right? So they are
Okay,
eligible.
that
You
work
know what I mean?
experience counts.
They're eligible. Now, when it comes to the age, they're just not going to get points on age, right?
Yeah.
So it's other areas where they'll need to get points and
Mm.
see how they are able to make it into the pool. Once they can make it into the pool, then that means they're eligible to be able
Okay.
to enter the pool, and then they're fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So are there other routes to come into Canada apart from express entry? Of course, yes. You have school, you can get work if you have an employer, you can do provincial nomination. So there are other pathways that you can explore. Can you talk about work permit? No, sir. This is not the webinar for that. I studied a different course in my master's and first degree. Which can I apply with? Also, is there age limit? So we have answered the question on age. What degree you studied? I think it's not really so relevant now. What job do? You are coming in with your work experience. So that is, yeah, you want to put your best foot forward. It is not about what you studied in first degree or second degree. Abemos.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You just need minimum high school education to prove that you have the education.
Yeah.
If you're going through federal skill, if it's under that, if it is um, skill trade, you don't need, technically, you don't really need education. The point is the work experience. It's the work experience. You might have studied, many of us studied, I studied mathematics, right? Into industrial mathematics. I worked in the bank in Nigeria. I'm doing immigration today. I also work as a project manager. I have people that read English. They are working as nurses today. You know, it's not what you study. It's
Yeah,
the
not
work.
what I study. Yeah. Please, I'm interested in occupation category-based jobs. That's what we've been talking about all day. Um, what question again? Good. What's the cost of profiling and IELTS? For IELTS, please check, ask Google for the rates in your location. I don't know how much they charge now, but you will easily see it. What is the cost of profiling? I don't know what that means, but if you are asking that, how much do we charge to help you create your profile? We will talk about that in a bit. And can those artisans who cannot read and write apply? Of course not, because they will not be able to get their test of English. Shed more light on Nova Scotia immigration pathway. Sorry, this is not the webinar for that. But Amos, because we talked about the health, for this is a federal scheme. So the person that wants to know about the Nova Scotia immigration, I know it's not what we are talking about. If you just have one or two sentences to give to the person, please do.
Okay. So Nova Scotia immigration program, they have a number of options, right? They have a number of options. I know somebody asked if we also help with provincial nomination. It's a yes and it's a no. If you're not eligible, if we create a profile for you and you're eligible for a provincial program, we advise you on that. Right? If you're not eligible, we'll keep looking. For Nova Scotia, they do have several pathways. They have I don't want to go into the details. They have the one that is tailored towards medical doctors, right? Towards medical doctors. They have occupations in demand. I think they are focusing on early childhood education and truck drivers, if I can recall. They have that. But many of the provincial program, generally speaking, they look at occupation and work experience,
Mhm.
sorry, job offer within their province is the big deal there. Some have
Mhm.
exceptions like Saskatchewan, like Manitoba. If you have family members, they can support your application, but you still need to be qualified. Uh, then Ontario too, they go into the pool and invite certain occupations. So for nurses in Nova Scotia, they've made it an easy process for certain countries, including Nigeria. If you're a nurse, to get their licensing process started, they've created a simple path to get that started. So if you want to go through express entry, you can start that, or you want to start with them, get their licensing, but that's just maybe getting licensing.
Yeah.
Might you get a job based on that from an employer there? It's possible. You might be able to get a job with an employer in the province. And that creates an opportunity for you to be able to get a nomination from the province. So the provinces have several options, right? So if we create a profile for you, we look at your profile and we check all the provinces. If you're eligible for one or more, we tell you, and then we'll express interest to the province.
Okay, thank you. So, somebody said that he only evaluated his master's certificate and did not do bachelor's. I don't know why people do that anyway.
Fine.
So
It's
he said
fine.
can he is it not the same amount to do all those evaluation, or you pay separate money?
If you use West, I think West charge the same amount. Maybe some others might ask you to pay, and they might ask you to pay all of them. But for express entry purpose, it's always
It's
recommended you
okay
evaluate the
to do,
highest.
okay.
The
So
highest. Yeah.
that means that this person can
Can use
definitely
that.
use that.
Yes.
Okay. So somebody is asking, I want to come in for conference. Okay, so what do we, I mean, we have told them evaluate your results, do IELTS. So for those who have those things on ground now, what do we do for them in terms of creating their profile and then managing their profile for 1 year and all of that? So can you just talk briefly on that as we plan to round off?
Okay, great. So creating profile, it sounds very easy. Very easy. I know I was discussing Coach Boss about that too. It sounds very easy. Anybody can go in and create a profile. But the truth is, there are technicalities to creating profile. Now, if you want to create it yourself, it's you have the link, you can do that. But I really encourage that you use a professional to do that. When I create profiles for people, if I tell you the rate, you like shout, this is a lot, but it is true. I charge 1,000 Canadian dollars to create an express entry profile. The reason is this: the technicalities around creating the profile, I will make sure I cover that, because the goal of creating the profile in the end, when you get an IT, you want to have a successful PR application. If you create a profile where you mess things up and you get an invitation to apply, the officer is looking at what you said in the profile and what you are submitting. If there's a discrepancy, you have a problem, right? So, and then that's one. Number two, we manage the profile for 1 year because it's going to be valid for 1 year. It's going to be on my portal. I'm checking it for you. If there's an update, I'm responding to it. So let's say, for argument's sake, you pay me $100 to create a profile for you today. And 8 months down the line, I'm managing your profile. Meanwhile, when I do a study permit application, I've processed study permit applications for like 10 candidates, right? And I finished all their transactions in 3 months. But yours, I have it with me for 8 months into 1 year because the profile is valid for 1 year, after which, if you don't get an invitation, it expires, you start all over. That's why the amount is that. But for this conference, Coach Bosses asked for that discount and I granted it. We will be creating profile. If you can do that, maybe she can give a shorter timeline, but I'm saying if you can do that within a week of this conversation, we can do it for $700. Now, it's easy to just create a profile again. As I mentioned, if you look at one of my slides, I said, whatever you cannot prove, you cannot put in your profile. That it's something I shouldn't tell you here, but I just told you already. Now, there are more to that. There are more to that. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. So thank you so much, Amos. So what is, for people here now, what basically we have said is to bring you to the awareness that you are not stranded with school. I mean, a lot of people want to come to Canada via the school route, but the way the exchange rate is going, people are groaning. So if putting the money together for school is too heavy for you, please, it's in your best interest to open your mind to other alternatives. People just want easy fix, and that is why people get scammed. Because if we had sat down here now and we told you, oh, they are looking for corn pickers in Canada, that they are going to buy you ticket to fly you to Canada to come and pick corn for them in their farm, then all you have to pay is 2 million naira. You say, oh, Canada, here I come. And they keep scamming you over and over and over again because you are not interested in putting in the work. We will give you suggestion. Can you go and learn French? You say, me, how can I learn French? I cannot. Okay, can you even go and collect your transcripts from school and do evaluation? You will come up with an excuse. What about writing test of English? Oh, I wrote one 5 years ago. I scored 5. That thing is too hard. I cannot do it again. Please, if you don't want to do anything, me, I don't like to work with people that are not serious. Stop bugging me. Stop calling me and be stressing me out and keep me on the phone and be asking me jam questions that are not getting you anywhere. I will not answer. Hey. So this is something that you can do. Go and write your test of English. Go and get your credentials evaluated and create this profile and stay in the pool and trust God that something, they will reduce the point to catch your point, or some provinces will be look for your job in demand. They'll come and take you. At least you are doing something while you are trying to also look for alternative. So that is why we are doing this today. And if you are interested in taking the offer to say, I'm ready to create my profile, please send email. Alima, kindly drop info@edutribe.org in the chat box. Send email. Please do not call me. Ejo, I beg you in Jesus' name. Just send email. Then we will take the conversation from there. You have our office contact. You can chat with the staff, to get more information from them. But if you want to speak with me or speak with Amos directly, we would only start the conversation with you via email. If you contact me, don't worry, me and Amos, we are 5 and 6, we are together. Okay, so thank you so much. I know there are some questions we were not able to touch, but because we like to always keep to time, if we slated something for 1 hour, we'll do it in 1 hour. So if all those your other questions, just look at the chat box and see our office, what is it now, WhatsApp number and all. You can ask those questions there. They will forward to me and I would answer. I promise you. Okay, so thank you so much, Amos. Thank you for coming. Can we say thank you again to Amos for sharing with
Can I
us?
say one more thing?
Okay,
I know
go ahead.
I'm going to do it in 30 seconds. So encourage someone out there.
Yeah.
She made mention that you have to do something. You have to. When I was doing my own immigration application in 2012, if I tell you where I wrote my IELTS, some of you will shout,
Anna.
is it that difficult? Is it that difficult?
Ghana.
I went to do my IELTS in Accra, Ghana. I paid plane tickets to go to Accra, Ghana to do my IELTS because I couldn't get a center in Nigeria on time and I needed to submit. It's that tough. As in, if you make up your mind that you want to achieve this goal, you can do it. And second, my application was refused. I paid for a lawyer to go to court and prayed. I'm a Christian. I also prayed to God. And then it was reopened and approved. Going to pay to the lawyer, that's like you're talking about $5,500 to $6,000 then. But I got a discount because of relationship and I paid about $4,500 in the end. But guess what? That money that I paid then in the first year of coming to Canada, I would say first few months, I made that money that I paid or that I spent. So somebody should be encouraged out there, not because you want to pay us any money, but see it as if it's your life goal and vision to bring your family into Canada, sacrifice is required. You have to keep it. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for the encouragement. So please do something. There is no free lunch, even in Freetown. If it's not costing you money, it has to cost you effort. It has to cost you time. It must cost you something. But when you don't want it to cost you anything at all, you just want it something dropping on your lap, then you have to really be careful so that you will not be scammed. So till we come your way again with another beneficial webinar, we want to sign out here and say, God bless you. Thanks for joining us today. So enjoy the rest of the evening. I will stay just for 2 more minutes so that if you want to catch anything on the chat, you can do that before I end the call. But if you are good, you can just wave and tell us bye-bye. See you next time. Thank you.